Sid, please tell me, how did you get into the nitrate business, and what led you to developing red spinach extract as your preferred nitrate ingredient at PLT?
Well, I have been interested in nitrates for probably 5 or 6 years. I noticed a market need with customers asking for a standardized source of nitrates. And I started working on trying to develop one using the most traditional methods, or most traditional products like beet and kale and products like that, and found that the variability was so great that in order to standardize it, you would just have to standardize to a very low level if you were going to be consistent in your results. So I came across this red spinach extract source, and they were standardized to 9%, which was exceptionally high. And after doing work on that product, reviewing it, and looking at the quality of the product, the standardization methods, the extraction methods, etc., we were very interested in and decided that this was the best of standardized nitrates, really almost the only source of standardized nitrates in the marketplace.
And I think you said something really important, which we are going to address later on in this video. The extraction method matters a lot.
Yes.
And I will ask you another question when it comes to that a little bit later on. But so we know that, as you've mentioned, there are the differences between different plant-based sources, right? In nitrates, there is a huge variability. Why is that?
Well, as you know, Mother Nature is not in the nitrate business. So when it's interesting, I'm not a horticulturist, so answering the exact question why is a little more difficult. But I know that nitrates in the plant source, in the plant source itself, is extremely variable due to geography, environment, moisture content. It even varies if you have the exact same field. If you harvest it in the morning,
Sure.
Harvest it in the evening, harvest it at different temperatures outside, everything affects nitrates. As a matter of fact, one of the things that I've learned over the last number of years working closely with the growers of raw materials, and especially beet, because that was where I focused my attention first. One would think that if you supplemented the soil with nitrates, the beets would have a higher level of nitrates. But in fact, that is not one of the better or more reliable ways of raising the nitrate content in beets, because it just varies so much from not only field to field, but just, as I said, when you harvest it and what the conditions are during harvesting.
Yes, I agree. And it comes to really every single plant-based source. The variability is huge based on the external factors that you just emphasized. So, Sid, just like majority of Resync ingredients, there are extracts, and red spinach is an extract as well. Let's talk about why it is important and why you guys at PLT did decide to create an extract as opposed to a juice or a powder.
Well, going back to not to beat the same horse over and over again, but when you use a juice or an extract, a juice or a powder, all the powder is the solids content of the fruit or of the vegetable. Cool. So for example, a beet powder is either going to be the solids of the whole beet, which will have more fiber, which will have a lower nitrate content in the powder itself than a juice extract, which is the solids content of the juice. So it's a smaller fraction of the solids that's in the whole beet. So since the majority of the nitrates go over into the juice, then you're basically putting those solids or those nitrates into a smaller fraction of solid. Now, that being said, um, the powders of juice or of a whole beet can only have the nitrate content that is naturally occurring in the beet, and you you can't put more. I mean, you can put more in there, but that's not going to be coming from the beet. So you can never standardize a product to a higher level. You can only standardize it. You standardize down. The advantage of an extract is because we're taking that natural source of nitrates and using, well, what we're doing is using no solvents, but just water to pull the nitrates out of the red spinach without all of the solids and all of the other compounds that are in the product. You can get a higher level of nitrates, so you can standardize it to a higher level and be more consistent in the product that you get.
It's really
the nitrate level you get.
Could you please show me the math of how your red spinach extract gets its number of 9% nitrates?
Yeah, to make it simple, a red spinach extract, it takes 50 pounds of red spinach, to make 1 pound of spinach extract. So where a spinach has about 100 milligrams or 180 milligrams of nitrates per 100 grams. So that's a very low amount of nitrates in the spinach, in the whole spinach. And when I say whole spinach, I'm talking about not dried, but a whole spinach right off, which is about 90% water.
Mm-hmm.
So if you take that, and it takes 50 pounds to go to 1 pound, so you can do the math and know that it's less than 0.5% nitrates when we start, and we end up with 9% because we're extracting the nitrates from the spinach and concentrating it so it's in a much smaller percentage of powder.
But if you had to compare exactly the nitrate content to beets, beet powder, beet juices, and then red spinach extract, what is the ratio?
Well, we typically find a beet is going to be, as I said, a beet powder,
mm-hmm.
A whole beet powder using some of the best drying technologies that are out there. You'll end up with a product that's somewhere between 0.5% nitrates up to, at the most, you'll very seldom get above 3% nitrates. A juice, because it's all water, I mean, you can take that number and multiply it by, or divide it by close to 95%. So that's going to be somewhere, you're going to have you have a very low percentage content. So when people suggest you drink beet juice, they're talking about drinking 0.5 liter or 1 liter of beet juice to get a reasonable amount of nitrates. And even in that much, a 0.5 liter or 1 liter of beet juice is comparable to less than 1 gram of red spinach extract. So that's the kind of difference you see. You see anywhere from 5 to 50 times more nitrates in 1 gram of red spinach extract than you would see in 1 gram of beet powder, whole root powder, or a juice powder, or juice itself.
Yeah, it's a huge difference. So with that being said, Sid, what do you think people should pay attention to when they compare the nitrate claims that some companies make there on their label about their products containing, X amount of nitrates? Or it has, in 6 beets equivalent of that amount of nitrates, which is just such a silly comparison when companies do that. Let's educate people what it means and what they should pay attention to.
Yeah, when it says it's equivalent to a number of beets, doesn't matter what the number is. You don't know. That is telling you nothing about the nitrate content of their product, because nobody knows what the nitrate content of a particular beet is. The FDA won't even say this is the number that we would assign to the nitrate content of a beet, because it's too variable. It's between crops, you can't even say, okay, from this crop that came from this field, from this farmer, the nitrate content is about this. It's not, you can't even do that because it's too variable. So comparing their product to a number of beets is maybe good marketing, but it's not really informative marketing. When people put the level of nitrates as you do, if they're using a beet powder, look at the ingredient list. Sometimes those ingredient lists will include, one of their ingredients further down on the list will be sodium nitrate. So now you know how they got some of their nitrates in their product is through a synthetic product that was sodium nitrate that's manufactured. If they don't, if they are only using whole root or whole juice powder, you have to look at the level and say, is it reasonably possible that could have that much nitrates in it, depending on what they're saying. Again, it's going to be variable. So if they are capable of standardizing to a 2% beet juice powder, then you can do the math and say, well, could 10 grams possibly have, if I've got 10 grams of powder of whole beet powder, if it was 2%, how much nitrates would I really have in there?
Correct.
And if they have more nitrates than that, then you have to wonder where those nitrates came from.
Exactly, and I think it leads us into one of my almost last questions, which is you said people need to look at the label and sodium nitrate, which is being used for spiking. Now, let's briefly say why people should be concerned about it.
Well, if you want a natural source of nitrates, I mean, the real issue is what are you looking for as a consumer? If it's a natural source of nitrates, that's not a natural source of nitrates. It's a synthetic source of nitrates. So it's really just what you're looking for and what you want in a product. If you want a product that's supplemented with synthetics, then that's fine, if that's what you want. But most people are looking for natural sources of nitrates and not synthetic sources. That's what they think they're paying for.
Yes, I agree. And I really am glad that we made that statement, because people need to just understand the differences. And of course, the decision belongs to them, and we are not imposing to do one thing or the other. Do what's right for you, but just know the differences.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.